Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot. This really was an impressive pilot episode. They covered so much. You know, there have been TV series that I've seen where the pilot episode is like the episode that you skip. It's almost like, you know, the pilot could be something that's so different from the regular show, there's almost no point in watching it. That's not what's going on with the Smallville series. Like if you wanted to get somebody interested in watching the show, if you wanted to give them like a good, you know, microcosm of what the entire series is, all they have to do is watch the pilot. It's got everything in it. We met all the major characters. We explored just a little bit, introduced to all of the major character relationships that are important in the show, major character arcs, important events. It's all covered in this. There were things I was looking back at after watching the series, looking up, and I just took for granted that they must be in different episodes. And when I actually looked it up to see, I find out some of the stuff, it's all in the same episode. It was all from the pilot. Like, the pilot covered so much. Okay, so pilot episode opens with 2 outsiders flying into Smallville to turn it upside down. Clark, the space alien, in his little escape pod, and Lionel with his son Lex in their helicopter. So, unbeknownst to the Luthors, they just happen to have bad timing here. Lionel's been trying to get a foothold in Smallville. Coincidentally, at the same time, the meteor shower ends up hitting, changing everything for everybody. And what the Luthors don't realize is they're about to become the town scapegoats. Because the meteor shower is this massive major trauma for the entire town. It leads to all these really creepy, bizarre, scary, dangerous consequences that are still affecting the town years after the fact. And the town needs somebody to blame for that. They can't blame the space alien invader, can they? Because the Kents hide Clark and teach him to hide himself. So they gotta find somebody else. Guess who Jonathan Kent, the angry, butthurt farmer who can't accept defeat, points a finger at? Jonathan Kent, who is well-liked in the town, a central figure in the town, has the opportunity to point a finger at the Luthors and teach everybody to do the same. Weird, creepy things happen. Must be the Luthors and Luthor Corps and them dumping chemicals or whatever else he says they're doing. That's not explicitly in the pilot, but it seems obvious to me that that's what happened. So then the Luthors became the scapegoats for the entire situation. And I'm curious, do we have any evidence at any point in the series that the Luthors were hated before this point? Like, is it because of Clark and the meteor shower and what I'm sure Jonathan Kent spread about them? All of the character assassination? Is that why the Luthors have such a reputation and are so hated at the point that we, you know, for the rest of the series? Is it all because of that? Big difference that is established in this episode between the Kents and the Luthors. The Kents' MO is all about avoiding accountability. It's about hiding who you are. Don't let the world know who and what you are. Hide it. Shove it down. Pretend it's not there as much as possible. And just see if we can scoot through life without anybody finding out. The Luthors, right from like literally the first couple of minutes of the show, Lionel is talking to his son and telling him, you know, to embrace who he is, to embrace his family name, to embrace who and what he is. He is a Luthor, to overcome, you know, his fears, to face things head on. Completely different from the Kents. Totally different. The Kents are living in constant fear of exposure. The Luthors just embrace the fact that they're going to be sprayed all over the front news for the rest of their lives, and that's just the way it is. And you don't live in fear. You face your fears head on. You don't live in fear and let that fear manipulate you. Practical difference that's set up between juxtaposing Clark and Lex. Clark is nigh invulnerable, right?
Are you all right?
I'm fine. I'm a superhero. I'm nigh invulnerable. I'm built for this kind of thing.
So we see him entering the world with very low personal risk to himself on any day-to-day basis. And he gets to enter the world with this expectation of being loved because we see him surrounded by love when he's young. And then as the series progresses, you know, we get to witness that he's living this charmed life. He has the Kent charm, right? The Clark Kent charm or whatever it was. I think Chloe called him that. Lex gets exactly the opposite. Everywhere he goes, he gets scapegoated. He's experienced hate and bullying ever since childhood and all the way through to adulthood. He gets blamed for things that are not his fault. He's hated by people irrationally who don't even know him. And he's very vulnerable. He almost dies twice in this episode. We see when he's a kid in the meteor shower, and then when he is, you know, that in the meteor shower, you know, Clark is totally fine. Lex almost dies. And then in the Porsche crash, Clark is totally fine. Lex almost dies. So he approaches the world with great personal risk, great vulnerability, and struggling to be loved anywhere he goes. So one of them is living that charmed life, and the other one definitely isn't. And yet the one living the charmed life is the one who lives in fear and hiding, and the one who's not living a charmed life is living it with boldness and integrity. Okay, Porsche crash happens. Lex is driving his car. He loses control, hits Clark. They go overboard. They end up in the river. He almost dies. Clark saves him. First face-to-face encounter between Clark and Lex. The very first thing out of Lex's mouth is him taking responsibility for hitting Clark. He says, I could have sworn I hit you. First thing out of his mouth. He doesn't dodge blame. He doesn't make excuses. He's immediately taking responsibility, taking accountability for what happened. Admitting his mistake. What is the first thing Clark says to Lex? First thing in their first conversation? Lies and gaslighting. Like I showed in that other video, lies plus gaslighting, that's two strikes, not just one. Those are two different things. Clark does both of them in the very first thing he says to Lex in their first face-to-face conversation. To me, that's a huge defining moment in their relationship that's set up right there in that conversation. And it doesn't look good for Clark, let me tell you. Later at the mansion, too, he goes and meets Lex, and Lex is fencing with his teacher. Clark apparently breaks into the mansion, ? We don't really process that at all. Lex notices. He notices that, like, Clark got in there, and he's like, well, how the heck did you get in my house? I live in, like, a gated mansion. And Clark just lies to him again, says he squeezed through the bars or something ridiculous. So, like, Clark broke into his mansion in broad daylight and then lied about it? That's weird. Whatever. What do you want to bet Lex checked his security cameras and already found out something about Clark right there in that first episode, even though they didn't show it to us? Just saying. Jonathan shows up at the Porsche crash accident scene and immediately assumes Lex was to blame. Lex doesn't dodge the blame at all, even though he could. Despite the hypocrisy we see from Clark later, it is established well in this episode that Clark is not, in fact, particularly careful about using his powers in public. He uses his super speed to run around in front of people very recklessly. He wants to be on the football team, which is not what you would do if you were afraid of people finding out your powers. Clark in this episode shows us he gets very angry at people withholding information from him that he believes he has a right to. He gets mad at his father for not telling him about the fact that he's a space alien. Of course, I think, how old is Clark? He's like 15. How the heck have you grown up and never been in that storm cellar? You never, as a kid, wandering around, your parents were able to keep that close track of you that you never wandered around, whatever. That's a side note. But Clark also gets mad at Chloe for not telling him about the wall of weird, which is a little bit weirder for him to get mad about because, like, why the heck is that even his business? So when Clark withholds information from Lex later on, information that pertains to Lex directly and is important for pivotal moments in Lex's life, remember that in this episode, Clark is a hypocrite. We also see that Clark is an absolute creep who regularly spies on Lana. Defining moment for Lex later on. So Lex shows up at the crap factory, right? And then there's a point later on where I'm not sure why he's there at night or something, and he's out by the same cornfield where his traumatic experience happened with the meteor shower. Probably for the first time since it happened, he's back at that scene. Clearly a very traumatizing incident for everybody, including himself and his father. And he hears, it's dark, he's alone, it's dark, and he sees that guy. He looks exactly like the guy that he saw in the cornfield during that really creepy, bizarre event leading up to the meteor shower. And then he vanishes, or I don't know what happened. He just says he loses track of him. He disappears. And then he hears a call for help. And what does he do? What would you do in that situation? I'm just curious. What would you do if you're alone at night at the site of some PTSD from your past? You think you see a ghost and you hear a cry for help. What do you do?
The maze. Let's go.
I heard that Kiki knew Montgomery spent 11 hours in that thing. They had to send dogs in for him. And when they finally found him, he had eaten his own shoelaces. No way, man, no way.
Well, Lex just, by himself, faces his demon immediately and runs right out into the cornfield by himself at night. And because he was willing to do that, because he faced that fear, if he had any fear, head on, didn't run away from it, he was able to save Clark. So instead of running away like he did when he was a kid, he was scared and ran away as a little kid, he faces that immediately and ends up like overcoming that exact thing right there in the first episode, overcomes that, and it allows him to save Clark. And I'm curious, do we know what would have happened to Clark if he was left out there in the cornfield indefinitely with kryptonite hung around his neck? Like, would he have died? Did Lex save his life in episode 1?